You can insult the shirt I'm wearing all you want." Marcus set his grease-stained wrench down on the cold steel table. He didn't raise his voice at all. He didn't step back. He just looked straight into the eyes of the billionaire CEO, who was currently laughing at him. "But if you press that start button on that console, you are going to kill someone." The entire glass-walled observation room went completely dead silent. Nobody dared to move a single muscle. A dozen high-profile Wall Street investors stared at the man in the faded blue maintenance coveralls. To understand how a regular guy fixing pipes ended up holding the fate of a billion-dollar medical tech company in his calloused hands, we have to rewind exactly 6 hours. It was a quiet Tuesday morning at Medcore Industries. Marcus was lying on his back under a massive industrial sink in the main testing lab. He was fixing a stubborn, leaky water valve. It certainly wasn't glamorous work, but Marcus gave it 200% of his focus anyway. He was the kind of man who always carried a genuine smile on his face, no matter how dirty the job got. Around 10 o'clock, the heavy double doors swung open. Dr. Arthur Sterling walked into the room. Sterling was the CEO and lead visionary of Medcore. He was a man who wore custom $5,000 suits and looked at working-class people like they were obstacles instead of human beings. Today, he was leading a highly exclusive group of VIP investors on a final facility tour. This was happening just 2 weeks before the company's massive initial public offering on the stock market. They were about to launch a revolutionary artificial intelligence automated surgical robot. Sterling stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Marcus lying on the floor in his path. He didn't see a hard-working father doing an honest day's labor. He just saw a dirty stain on his perfectly curated corporate picture. Sterling aggressively snapped his fingers and told Marcus to get his filthy tools out of the way immediately. He didn't stop there. He made a loud, incredibly arrogant joke to the investors about how some people in this world are just destined to clean up after the real innovators. He called Marcus a bottom feeder who completely lacked the mindset required to ever build true wealth. A few of the junior investors awkwardly chuckled. Marcus just calmly wiped his hands on an old rag and smiled politely. He didn't argue back. He didn't let his ego take over the situation. He knew exactly what his own worth was, and he didn't need validation from a man in a fancy suit. If you are watching this video right now, I want you to take a second to leave a comment. Just type, "I choose real value over flashy appearances." Do it right now, if you respect how this man is living his life. You see, Sterling had absolutely no idea who he was actually talking to, and he had no idea what Marcus was going home to later that evening. Marcus was a single dad, raising a brilliant 8-year-old daughter named Lily. They lived together in a small, cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the industrial edge of the city. Every single evening, after fixing pipes and cleaning vents all day, Marcus would stand on their tiny concrete balcony with her. They were building a highly complex hydroponic garden together from scratch. They grew their own fresh vegetables and raised tilapia in a small, custom-built aquaponics tank. It wasn't just a hobby. It was his way of teaching his little girl how the world really worked. He taught her to never be afraid of failing at something new. He taught her that true freedom doesn't come from wearing expensive designer clothes or driving luxury sports cars to impress strangers. True freedom comes from taking complete control of your own life and learning how to not rely on a broken system. Every single decision Marcus made in his life was designed to protect Lily's innocent smile. That was his real wealth. Back in the pristine testing lab, the tension was quietly building to a boiling point. Sterling was now demanding that Marcus apologize publicly to the room for slowing down their VIP tour. He threatened to have human resources fire him right there on the spot if he didn't comply. Marcus knew exactly how much he needed this steady paycheck to keep the lights on at home and keep food on the table for Lily. So he bit his tongue, picked up his heavy metal toolbox, and started to walk quietly toward the service elevator. But as he bent down to grab a stray hex bolt off the floor, he heard something strange. It was a microscopic, high-pitched whining sound. It was vibrating faintly. From the Z-axis motor of the massive surgical robot in the center of the room, Marcus had a highly trained ear. He also had a deeply ingrained, almost obsessive habit of noticing mechanical things that other people completely missed. He instantly realized the main robotic arm was misaligned by exactly 0.2 millimeters. In the delicate world of automated neurosurgery, 0.2 millimeters isn't just a minor software glitch. It is a catastrophic, fatal error. It is the brutal difference between a successful tumor removal and cutting directly into a patient's brainstem. The presentation officially started. The investors eagerly gathered around the reinforced glass enclosure. Sterling proudly announced that they were going to perform a live micro-excision on a synthetic tissue model to prove the AI's flawless precision. He walked confidently over to the main control terminal. He dramatically raised his hand over the glowing green start sequence button. Marcus froze completely still by the elevator doors. He felt a massive knot twisting violently in his stomach. He knew for a fact that if he opened his mouth now, Sterling would absolutely fire him and ruin his reputation in the maintenance union. He would instantly lose his only source of income. He would have to go home tonight and figure out how to explain to Lily why they couldn't afford her school science trip next month. But he also knew what was going to happen when that robotic system went to market and operated on real, living human beings. He knew the underlying AI core logic was fundamentally flawed and dangerous. His conscience, the heavy conscience of a man who actually valued human life over corporate profits, screamed at him to act. Sometimes, doing the right thing is the absolute hardest choice a man can ever make. If you would never turn your back on your own conscience for a paycheck, drop a comment down below right now. Type, "I choose real value over flashy appearances." Let the world know exactly where you stand. Sterling smiled warmly for the cameras and reached his finger down for the button. That was the exact moment Marcus intentionally dropped his heavy toolbox. The metal crashed against the polished floor. It echoed like a gunshot in the sterile, quiet room. Everyone immediately turned to look at him in shock. Marcus took a slow, deep, deliberate breath. He walked straight past the confused security guards. He walked right up to the billionaire CEO, and he spoke the words that would completely change the trajectory of both of their lives forever. "You can insult the shirt I'm wearing all you want, but if you press that start button on that console, you are going to kill someone." Sterling stared at him for a long, agonizing second, and then the billionaire burst out laughing. It was a loud, patronizing laugh that echoed off the glass walls. He looked at the investors, shaking his head, like he had just heard a child tell a silly joke. "Security," Sterling snapped, waving his hand dismissively. "Get this lunatic out of my lab before he hurts himself." Two large security guards immediately stepped forward, reaching for Marcus's shoulders. But Marcus didn't back away. He didn't raise his fists, and he didn't shout. He simply held up one single, grease-stained hand. There was a quiet, undeniable weight in that simple gesture. It was the kind of absolute authority that you cannot fake, and you cannot buy. The guards actually hesitated. In that split second of hesitation, Marcus stepped smoothly past them and walked directly up to the main control terminal. Sterling's arrogant smile instantly vanished. "Hey, get your filthy hands off that keyboard. That is proprietary." Marcus didn't even look at him. His fingers hit the mechanical keyboard. He wasn't randomly typing. He was moving with blistering, terrifying speed. He typed exactly 4 lines of raw command code. It was a deep-level back-end override sequence that no basic maintenance worker should ever know. He hit the enter key. Instantly, the massive surgical robot powered down with a heavy mechanical clunk. The giant presentation screens hanging above the room suddenly flashed violently red. A massive warning prompt filled the monitors. Critical structural flaw detected in Z-axis logic core. Catastrophic failure imminent. The investors started murmuring nervously, stepping back from the glass enclosure. But it was the next line of text on the screen that completely sucked the air out of the room. In the top right corner, blinking in bright green letters, the system read, "Override accepted. Welcome, System Architect, Marcus V." The room went dead. One of the senior Wall Street investors, a man who had been deeply researching Medcore's origins for months, pushed his way to the front. His face was completely pale. He looked at the screen, and then he looked at the man in the dirty blue coveralls. "Marcus Vance." The investor whispered in absolute shock. "You're Marcus Vance, the original founder." Sterling's face drained of all its color. His jaw practically hit the floor. He was staring at the ghost of Medcore. 4 years ago, Marcus Vance was widely considered the most brilliant AI engineer of his generation. He was the man who single-handedly wrote the core architecture that this entire billion-dollar company was built on. And then, right before the technology went public, he vanished. He sold all of his shares, signed away his patents, and walked away from the industry completely. Sterling had spent the last 4 years taking all the credit for Marcus's genius, telling the world that he was the mastermind. And now, the real architect was standing right in front of him, holding a wrench. Sterling started stammering, desperately trying to salvage his precious IPO. "Marcus, listen to me," Sterling pleaded, his voice completely losing its arrogant edge. "We can fix this. I can offer you a seat on the board. $10 million in stock options today. Just turn the system back on." Marcus looked at the billionaire. There was absolutely no anger in his eyes, only pity. "You still don't get it, Arthur," Marcus said quietly. "You thought I failed, because I sold my life's work for $2 million in cash." Marcus pulled out his phone, opened his screensaver, and held it up. It was a picture of a smiling little 8-year-old girl, holding a giant, freshly grown tomato from their balcony garden. "4 years ago, my daughter Lily needed an emergency heart transplant," Marcus explained, his voice thick with raw emotion, but steady as a rock. "The insurance wouldn't cover the experimental procedure. She needed to survive. The doctors gave her 2 weeks. So, I walked into a hospital conference room, and I sold my entire company to you, for pennies on the dollar. I traded an empire for the cash I needed to save my little girl's life." Marcus put his phone back in his pocket. "You look at me and see a loser who gave up $1 billion. I look in the mirror every morning and see a father who made the greatest investment in the history of the world. A man's absolute greatest success in life isn't building a company. It is protecting his child's innocent smile. If you agree with that from the bottom of your heart, leave a comment right now saying, 'I choose real value over flashy appearances.'" The senior investors didn't wait to hear another word. They immediately started making phone calls to pull their funding. The IPO was dead on arrival. Within 48 hours, Arthur Sterling was officially removed as CEO, pending a massive federal investigation for intentionally hiding critical safety flaws from the public. As for Marcus, the board of directors practically begged him to come back and fix the AI core. He agreed, but under one incredibly strict condition. He didn't want a corner office, and he certainly didn't want a fancy title. He demanded a retroactive royalty contract for the medical patents he had originally created. They had no choice but to sign the papers. Marcus didn't use that money to buy a mansion or a fleet of sports cars. He didn't change who he was. He took that royalty money and bought a beautiful, sprawling piece of land just outside the city limits. He built a massive, state-of-the-art eco-farm. It was completely off the grid, running on solar power, and the most advanced aquaponics systems in the state. Today, if you drive past that farm, you won't see a billionaire in a tailored suit. You will see a father in a pair of worn-out denim overalls, kneeling in the dirt, laughing uncontrollably, as his completely healthy daughter chases their golden retriever through the sprinkler system. Marcus proved once and for all that true power doesn't come from the chair you sit in, the suit you wear, or the title on your door. True power comes from what you can build with your own two hands, and what you are willing to sacrifice for the people you love. If this story ignited a fire in your soul today, hit that subscribe button right now. Join our community of real men and women who are fighting every day for the things that actually matter. Stick around, because we are just getting started.